Well, any budget defines a government's priorities, which opposition parties can and do take issue with. But given that much of what's in this year's Ontario budget comes down to COVID-19, does that still hold true? Well, let's find out. We're going to ask, all in the provincial capital tonight, Catherine Fife. She's the NDP Finance and Treasury Board critic and the MPP for Waterloo. Mitzi Hunter, the Liberal finance critic and the MPP for Scarborough-Guildwood. And Mike Schreiner is here. He is the leader of the Green Party of Ontario and the MPP for Guelph. Good to have you three opposition representatives with us here this evening. Can I just start? Catherine Fife, you're the official opposition. We'll start with you. Initial reaction to something you just heard in Peter Bethlenfalvy's interview.
Well, I mean, listen, I want to say right off the top that we were very encouraged to see that there was some funding for vaccinations. Nobody in this province believes that the vaccination rollout is going well. Businesses, healthcare professionals, educators have said, listen, we need to get this right, and we need to get needles in arms. So $1 billion, hopefully this helps. The race against the variants is real, and we need to make sure that people are kept safe. That said, we would have seen some very strategic investment in keeping people safe that the minister just referenced. For many days now, many months, actually, we've been fighting for paid sick days. And listen, Steve, if people are still going to work sick in Brampton and Peel and Mississauga and KW, then we're not going to get through this third wave. So we understand that there was strategic invested. This was a missed opportunity on behalf of the government. And if there was ever a time to be bold and ambitious with any budget, it would be this one. And the federal program on sick days is undersubscribed. It is not working. Let's make sure that we don't have another lockdown. That's what businesses have told us. That's what healthcare professionals have told us. And so this really, unfortunately, was a missed opportunity. They would have had our full support. And in this, we're all in this together sort of moment, that would have been very encouraging for us to see.
Okay, Mitzi Hunter, what would you have seen in that interview that you might want to challenge?
Oh, there's a lot that I see in the interview that I would like to challenge. First of all, I think the whole budget is a swing and a miss, because this was an opportunity to focus on the things that will set Ontario's up for a strong recovery. We first have to deal with the crisis in the pandemic. I agree that the minister says that's the job right now. But once we have everyone vaccinated, we have to look at the economic recovery. And there are key priorities that Ontario families have. Investments in education, making sure we don't leave anyone behind, that we close those learning gaps that have occurred because students have been out for a year of disrupted learning. We also, we know that women and racialized groups have been the hardest hit for the pandemic. And where is the specificity in this budget to address those concerns that are obvious? So the missed opportunity is that we could have made a generational investment in childcare. We could have recognized the climate change crisis and made this a recovery that is a green recovery. There are so many aspects to this budget that was very obvious, and it lacks vision. It also, pins its hope on an economy that is growing, but it doesn't actually do the hard work of making the investments today that produces that economic recovery in the future.
Mike Schreiner, your reaction.
Yeah, I just think the government is blind to the reality Ontarians are facing. To think that they've cut $4.8 billion in the next fiscal year at a time when we're going into the third wave of COVID, we're dealing with the fallout from the pandemic. It appears to me that the finance minister left a few chapters of his budget at the printers. They mentioned the climate crisis twice, homelessness twice. Let's face it, Steve, people need support to get through this pandemic, and they're going to need support for economic recovery. We know people need support for mental health. The government doesn't even meet its own annualized projected spending for that. They've cut public education by $790 million next year. They have not put in forward a plan for economic recovery that aligns with addressing the climate crisis. And finally, they're not addressing and putting the money we need to into things like supportive housing and other ways of addressing the housing affordability crisis across the province.
Having said that, Catherine Fife, they are going to spend $173 billion next year. Are you saying that wasn't enough?
I'm saying that to date, actually, they have predicted that they were going to spend money on, for instance, last year's budget also had a broadband investment. That money didn't get spent. What we have seen consistently from this government is that they say that they're going to come to the table with some money. I mean, we've heard the Premier say everything's on the table. Well, it's a pretty small table. And most of those things got knocked off as the fiscal situation in the province of Ontario got worse. So the 173 with this government means that you have to follow the money. You have to make sure that they're actually investing. I mean, I did an interview earlier today and Stan Cho said they're investing in education. This year alone, $790 million is coming out of the education system. And also remember, please, Steve, that prior to the pandemic, this was a government that was cutting public health, healthcare, and education. They were on a full-on assault against those public services. And we now know that there is a very strong connection between keeping people healthy and keeping the economy going. So why not be very strategic in keeping people safe on a go-forward basis so that we don't end up at having to shut down the economy again? Because we are in a third wave. We have 1,500 more cases today in the province of Ontario. This budget does not recognize or acknowledge the work that is already happening in healthcare, the stress that is also on that system, or the stress that's actually happening in our education system.
There have been, though, Mitzi Hunter, calls from a lot of quarters to raise taxes, particularly on wealthier people, in order to raise more money, to spend more money. They haven't raised taxes here. Do you think that was a good move?
Well, I don't see the room to raise taxes during the midst of a health pandemic. We've had 220,000 people lose their jobs. And so it's just not the right time to be talking about that. But, you know, this government does purport to have a budget that balances at the end of this decade. And it concerns me because when you look at the assumptions, you know, the growth in programs is just at about 7.7% over 6 years. And that does not even keep up with the normal rate of inflation or the normal growth in our population and just the normal demands. And they also have a very bold assumption of a 21% growth in revenue over those 6 years. And I would say, well, where is that going to come from? So the assumptions that have been put forward, they have a little bit of magical thinking to them. And it does, in my view, signal a pretty horrific situation that we could be in should they retain, power after the next election, because it's going to mean austerity and a reduction in services that Ontarians would rely on, whether it's in long-term care or in the health system in terms of hospitals. We know that we have enormous backlogs right now. The Ontario Medical Association has put that out. We have years worth of backlog, in fact, because of the situation that the pandemic has caused. And the investments that are put forward in this budget does not meet the need. And that's the concern that we have.
Well, I do want to follow up on that issue of tax increases with Mike Schreiner, because I know for a fact that one former Conservative finance minister, admittedly from 4 decades ago, had a meeting with Peter Bethlenfalvy, I'm talking about Darcy McHugh, and said to him, you could raise the GST, or I guess the HST, by 2 points, and it probably, there would not be a big political price to pay, and you'd take in billions of dollars, which would help you with some of the spending that you need to do. Obviously, the minister chose not to do that. Do you think he should have?
You know what, Steve, at a time when we're facing a once-in-a-century public health crisis that has led to a significant economic downturn, I don't think now's the time to be pinching pennies, looking at raising taxes, or the $4.8 billion cut the Conservatives are bringing in. Now's the time to make investments. And I can tell you, as a small business owner, there are times you borrow money to make investments, and you have to make smart investments so you have a good return on investment. And that's exactly the place Ontario is right now. And so the challenge is the fact that the government is cutting too early when we're not out of the pandemic yet, because we know getting the public health crisis under control is the best way to get our economic recovery to happen. And the fact that there's like nothing in this budget really talking about what economic recovery can look like. And let me just give you one example. To the Finance Committee over the summer, so many people said, invest in a green building retrofit program. It'll create jobs, help kickstart the recovery. So an economic analysis says if the province puts in $5 billion, that'll leverage $80 billion of private capital investment, create over 800,000 jobs, help people and businesses save money by saving energy, and reduce climate pollution all at the same time. But the finance minister left that chapter of the budget at the printers because I didn't see it today.
Catherine Fife, if there were one thing you would like to have seen in the budget that you didn't see, what would it be?
Well, there's so much. I mean, listen, the CARE tax credit that the government is, shopping out as a solution to get women back into the workforce, and we know that women have been disproportionately affected, is not going to work because those childcare spaces don't exist. So if the government truly understood that when you do invest in early learning and care, for every dollar, there's a $7 return to the economy, this would be a smart investment. Our Green New Democratic Deal also has a retrofitting plan. I mean, let's get small businesses back to work in local communities. The minister mentioned procurement, Steve. We have an amazing company in Kitchener-Waterloo called Canadian Shield. They did exactly what the government asked them to do at the beginning of the pandemic. They created PPE locally, quality PPE, affordable. They can't get their product into our own healthcare system. So, there are some low-hanging fruit that makes perfect sense. We shouldn't be creating jobs in other jurisdictions. We should be creating jobs right here in Ontario.
Mitzi Hunter, I wonder, as you look at the path back to balance, and I ask you this, you're, I guess, a former junior finance minister in Ontario, how concerned should we be that this province plans to take on billions and billions more in debt by the time we actually get to the end of the decade when they say the budget will be balanced? You concerned about that?
I mean, it is concerning because you want to make sure that this is something that we can afford to do in terms of our net debt to GDP. So the size of our economy relative to our spending, and I did take a look at that line, and it looks as if it's staying in the right direction and getting under the 50% mark. So, I have confidence in the people of Ontario. The finance minister said earlier that, they want to be number one in growth in North America. Well, we've experienced that under the former Liberal government. We were number one in the OECD in terms of economic growth. And we had, the lowest unemployment rate in a decade, in 40 years, actually. And we also had the number one jurisdiction for foreign direct investment. So I believe that we have to have those ambitions for our province, but they only come with the right sets of priorities. And I can't emphasize this enough. We cannot have a recovery where parts of our population, advances and bounce back quickly while others lag. We talk about building back better. Well, that has to happen together. And that's where this budget falls so far short, that there are so many groups that have been disproportionately impacted by this pandemic. You look at the effects on, for instance, racialized communities. You look at the effects on women, on youth. Our youth unemployment rate is at 22%, and there's no vision in this budget for the young people in Ontario to make sure that they don't have a lagging, scarring effect from the current economic recession that we're facing. And so, we have to do better. And if we're going to have deficits for years to come, then they better be spent wisely and setting us up for a better future and not leaving anyone behind.
Well, Mike Schreiner, let me play devil's advocate here. I mean, I'm looking at some of the budget papers here right now. A COVID-19 child benefit, they're going in for a third round of that. The seniors' home safety tax credit, they're going to bring that in to help seniors stay in their homes longer. Jobs training tax credit. To let people go back to college if they want to. You're a former small business guy. They've got a small business support grant here, $10,000 to $20,000 grants. I mean, does that mean anything for you?
Well, one of the things I did push the finance minister on when I met with him a few weeks ago was extending the Ontario Small Business Support Grant. So I was happy to see a second round of that. But there's still a number of small businesses, dry cleaners, caterers, a number of healthcare professionals, a number of small businesses that are still excluded from that program and desperately needing help. And the bottom line, Steve, is if we're going to get Ontario out of this fiscal hole, we have to build back in a smart way. And the Premier's approach so far has been environmentally destructive proposals that are blowing up in his face, whether it's building an Amazon warehouse on wetlands that people have said no to, whether it's Highway 413, which people are saying no to. The bottom line is we need economic growth. We need economic recovery. We need to make those investments, but we have to make sure we make those investments in a way that strengthen our communities, connect our communities, address the climate crisis, ensure that young people have a livable future, protect us from other threats that are coming, such as increase in flooding caused by the climate crisis. Those smart investments will set us up, and now is the time to make them when interest rates are at historic lows, and we need to get people back to work.
Well, we've got three small business people on deck right now who will certainly weigh in, I think, somewhat critically on this budget. So we're going to hear from them now. But I do want to thank the three opposition critics for coming in tonight and sharing their views on this. Catherine Fife from the NDP, Mitzi Hunter from the Liberals, Mike Schreiner from the Greens. Hope you three stay safe. And again, thanks for continuing the Budget Night tradition here on TVO.
A pleasure.
Thanks, Steve. Hi.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.